Hello! So today we're going to start this fish with a paper weaving woven body. And so the way that we're going to start this is you're going to start with a large piece of paper for the body of your fish. You're going to take your paper and fold it in half, long ways, so that you get a long hot dog bun. And then you're going to take your pencil and you're going to draw a hill that starts at the fold, goes up towards the top of the paper, and curves back down on the other side. And it can be more pointy on the ends, it can be more round with just like almost a rectangle with the corners curved off. It's the shape of your fish, so you get to decide. You're going to leave the paper folded and you're going to cut on the pencil line. I'm going to open it up and look at the shape, and then I want you to cut a mouth out. So on my finished example, I folded my paper and I cut a curved line that started on the fold in and curved out towards the out, so I got a round mouth. With this one, I'm going to cut in but cut diagonal so that when I open it up, I get a mouth that's open. Now before I start cutting my warp, the base of my weaving, I want to add some scales with a black crayon. Now you can draw it with pencil first. I'm going to leave some space up at the front for the eye. And you can draw these lines in pencil first if you're afraid you're going to make a mistake. I'm going to skip straight to black crayon. You can draw your scales small, you can draw them big, you can draw them more pointy and not as round as mine. Completely up to you. Now you're going to fold your fish in the opposite direction. So right now you have a crease down the middle. So you're going to fold your paper going this direction so that you get a crease going vertical. And when you fold it in half, you want to bring this fold, this crease, over to meet this crease. And you could slide it all the way over, but just make sure that you line up the two creases. So right now my creases are kind of crooked. Here's one crease, here's the other, so I need to line those up so that they make a nice straight line, and then I'm going to fold it in half. Again, I folded it in half, I lined up the crease with this crease here, and now I'm going to cut straight lines that go from the fold up, but I need to make sure that I don't cut off the edge of my fish. So I'm not going to cut real deep or real tall into this fish. I'm going to start on that fold, that crease line. I'm going to cut up, and I want to check on the other side. So I'm starting to get close to the mouth here, and I don't want to cut this in half, so I'm going to stop cutting here. And that's where I'm going to stop all of my lines. So now I'm going to cut. I'm going to leave about an inch. If I take my finger and I bend it, that's about an inch from this knuckle to this knuckle. And I'm going to cut a straight line and stop when I stopped here. Then I'm going to do one on the other side. Stop about the same spot going across. Now if I look on the other side, this side of my fish isn't quite as wide as the other side, so I'm going to leave it on this side so I know not to cut too far over to one side. Cut one side and cut on the other, nice and straight. Be real careful that I don't get close to the edge here, that I don't cut that off or it could easily tear. So now I have the base of my weaving. These are my warps, and I'm going to weave strips into my fish. So I'm going to go over one, lift up, go under one, over one, lift up, under one, over one, lift up, go under, and under again. And push that up as far as it'll go. I'll take my next one and I'll do the opposite. So since my blue is on top of this first part of my fish, my green starts under the first part. Since my blue is under the second part, my green goes over the second part. And then I just lift up every other one to go under, so that I make this checkerboard pattern. So that you see here that these rectangles don't touch each other. You know you're doing it incorrectly if these rectangles are lined up. So if I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's wrong. So if I slide this across, doing the same thing as the green, because that would be wrong. Then when I push it up, see how the red and the green touch? If you're doing it correctly, the two colors next to each other never touch, just like the corners. So I know I've done this incorrectly. Also, another thing is this red could go right on top of the green. The green, when it's woven, since it's woven correctly, can never go on top of the blue. It can't wiggle on top. So I'm going to take the red and I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the blue, opposite of the green. So I start over the first one like the blue is. Lift up the second one and go under like the blue. Push that up right next to the green, and it can't go over the top of the green, and the red and the green aren't lined up. So now I'm going to do the same as the green. I'm going to go under the first one, over the second one, just right next to the red. You need to push them close together so that they stay holding the fish together. If they're real loose and not tight, then they'll start wiggling and wobbling everywhere. And when you start to get to the end, if a strip will fit across, then you're going to weave. If a strip will not fit across, you have some cuts, but the strip is too wide, then you're finished. But this is my last strip because that's definitely going to fit. Go across. And when you get to the last strip, it does get a little tricky getting it woven through here. So if I push this up against the red, you'll see that there's still a little bit of a cut there, but that's just not wide enough for another strip, so I'm finished. So now I'm going to glue the ends of these strips down. I'll start with the ones on top, and I'll put a little dot of glue on the fish, squish the strip down. And as the space of the fish gets wider, I do a line of glue. Okay, now the tops of these strips have been glued, but the ones underneath have not. So now I'm going to lift up the whole part of the fish like this, and I'm going to put a dot of glue on each of the strips, and then I squish this whole thing down. And now all of the strips on top and the strips on bottom are glued. And I'm going to flip my fish around and do that same thing on this side. I'm going to let this glue dry a little bit, and I'm going to start to work on the eye of my fish. So I'm going to use some scrap paper. I'm going to start with a white. And the eye of your fish can be any shape. On my original fish, the eye of my fish were just 3 circles. So on this one, I think I'll make a mean-eyed fish. So I'm going to cut a diagonal line, and then I'm going to cut a swoop. And you might want to draw this first with your pencil so you kind of get it the shape that you want. And so that's going to be my mean eye. And now I need a colored part and a black part to my eye. I think since it's a mean fish, I'm going to do a red colored part. You can do whatever color you can find in the scraps that you want to use. And then I need a slightly smaller black circle to go on the red. And again, you can draw these first before you cut them out. And that black is a little bit too big for the red, so I'm going to trim that down a little bit more. And that's better. So now I'm going to glue the eye down. Red dot, and I'll use these drips to glue the black dot on there. There's the eye of my fish. I've given the strips on my weaving a little bit of time to get sticky, so I'm going to now trim these off. So I'm going to follow the curve of my fish body and trim these strips off, trying not to cut the body of the fish as I go around. And the same on this side. Alright, and so now all I have left for my fish is to add a tail, top fin, and 2 bottom fins. Fish typically have a nice big top fin and 2 smaller bottom fins, so I was doing it that way. And then all the scrap is going to come in handy. So I think what I'll do is do a purple top fin, and what I probably want to do is draw it first. My top fin could be this whole entire strip, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So I know I want the front of my fin to be at an angle, and I want the back of my fin to be at an angle too. And then I think I'm going to do a zigzag line, and then I'm going to cut that out. Now, when I cut this out, I want to cut the pencil lines off there because this is going to be the front of my fin where the pencil lines are. So the way that I drew it. So I definitely want to cut it a little bit smaller than my pencil drawing so that my pencil lines aren't on there. And then I'm going to take, my glue bottle is exploding here. Then I'm going to take my glue bottle, or my glue, and make a line of glue on the bottom, lift my fish up, and slide this top fin behind my fish, because that's the back. Now I want to do 2 smaller fins. And I don't want them to be the same, but I am going to do the same color. So the top fin, I'm going to have curve back and then back up. And I'm going to cut this pencil line off because I don't want to see it. Just like my top fin, I'm going to put a line of glue on the end that gets glued down, pick up my fish, and glue my fin on the back. And then for my back fin, it's going to be more of a rectangle shape. And again, I'm going to cut inside my pencil line so that they're not on my fin, because that just wouldn't look very nice. And now I need a tail. I'm going to start with the main part of the tail first, and that's going to be a curve, just like a rectangle with a curved side to it. Again, I'm cutting my pencil lines off. I could essentially just flip it over if I had pencil lines on this side, but it's not quite even. I'm going to trim that a little bit more. That's better. Alright, and now I have to decide how far in or out do I want. Obviously, I don't want to put it this far out because then it doesn't look like it's very much attached. It's got to go in. So I'm going to put a line of glue, lift up my fish, try to make sure that this part of it, the middle of it, lines up with the middle of my fish and it's not crooked. I need the back part of my tail. You could really do your tail any way you want. I want my tail to be symmetrical, so I'm going to fold this in half. And the shape of my tail is going to be, then I'm going to cut on my pencil lines. We're using scraps, so if you cut a tail shape out and you absolutely hate it, which I don't hate this tail shape at all, that looks wonderful, but if you absolutely hate your tail shape, then it's scrap paper, so you can try a different piece, but I don't want you to be too wasteful and do about 10 different shapes. You know, 1 or 2 shapes is probably plenty, and then just pick the best one. I'm going to put a little dot of glue in the middle, line that up, and glue my tail on. Alright, so here is my fish. And now I'm just going to use my black crayon to decorate the fins. The one thing that I completely forgot to tell you to do is put your name on the back of your fish. So we're going to flip this over and I'm going to write our name on the mouth of the fish, maybe back here or back over here. Your name. And the day you have art. Day A, day B, day C. Flip it over, and there is your finished paper weaving fish. Good job.